right, MobLand, episode 5, Funeral for a Friend. This show just keeps getting better every week. I know I said that last week. I'm going to keep saying it every week until the show's over. I went ahead and wrote a script. I'm going to start writing scripts for these reviews because a lot of times when I'm editing, it's just a lot of me cutting out me sitting here going, thinking and looking stuff up and stuff. So try to make things faster, editing faster, make the quality of the videos a little better. So the episode starts with Kevin and Harry discussing the idea of going to Tommy Stevenson's funeral, because in the last episode Ritchie invited them all to the funeral. Kevin and Harry are discussing it, determining the threat level and how they would defend themselves if in case it was an ambush of some kind. After that, Harry gets on the phone with Jan, tells her they won't be making brunch with Jan and their daughter because Conrad called a council of war, as he said, and Jan is nervous and questions her needing to go to the funeral since she doesn't know Tommy. She even says, like, I couldn't even pick him out in a lineup, so like, why do I even need to go? She ends up getting convinced by Harry. Not really getting convinced because she says that she was contemplating suicide anyway, so she was like, might as well go. Not that Harry convinced her. She was just like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna die either way, so let's go, whether she was joking or not. Kevin and Harry arrive at Conrad's. Maeve's making them breakfast. She goes, are you hungry, Harry? And he goes, yes, it looks delicious. And she just slams the plate on the ground. She goes, well, sit the fuck down and eat. It's like I wrote in the script she's being passive aggressive, but that's definitely not passive aggressive. That's just like aggressive. And obviously she clearly hates him because now she's trying to get him killed. She's like kind of half convinced Conrad that Harry's a snake, a grass. Conrad's coming down the stairs. He's got his 2 dogs that are always with him. He's on the phone with Brendan, one of their other sons, and Brendan says that he heard from Bella, who is Kevin's wife, that there's a conflab happening at the house and why he isn't there. And I had to look up what a conflab is because it's like some British shit, and it just means a private meeting or gathering. So there's a meeting at the house with Harry and Kevin and Maeve and Conrad and Eddie. Brendan wasn't invited and he's kind of butthurt about it. Brendan asks if Serafina is there, but they say no. That'll lead to something later in the episode. Conrad gives the phone to Maeve. She basically says the same thing. You weren't invited to it. Love you. Bye. Boop. While he's still talking, he's like, mom, boop. He just hangs up on him. After they eat, they're at the council of war. Conrad asks everyone their opinion, not Eddie's. I put that in parentheses because he does not care about Eddie's opinions since he's the whole reason they're in this mess anyway. Conrad's asking their opinion about the funeral. Kevin's worried it's a trap to get all the Harrigans together so they can all get wiped out at once. Maeve being snarky and being a smart ass, she's like, oh, I love free food and drinks, and when I want to see Vron's curtains. And obviously her real agenda, she's still hiding from everyone else but Eddie because they're in on it together. And Harry ends up saying that Ritchie is kind of a genius for doing it because it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. And then Harry suggests that they should have someone on the inside sneak in some guns, maybe some other things, just in case things go sideways. The next scene after that, Brendan, who was on the phone with Conrad earlier, shows up to Serafina's job, which is at like a jewelry shop of some kind, and he asks her to go to lunch with him for an hour so they can talk about the proposal he has for her. At first she declines him, and then eventually he convinces her, and then they go to this restaurant and he's ordering this fancy wine, and he's like he puts his whole face into the wine glass. He's like, it's so stupid. He's one of those snobby wine people, they're the worst people. And it just reminded me of South Park in the episode where they're all driving the electric vehicles and they're smug and they're smelling their own farts. That's exactly what it reminded me of. Anyway, he pulls out this little box thing. It's got a ruby in it. He says he's got more where that came from, and he's got a buyer, and he's got like a supply of more of them, and he's got ways of getting them. And he basically says that since her and Brendan are basically like, not like jokes to the family, but like people in the family don't really take them seriously, that's why they're never invited to anything. So Brendan's like, this is our way in. We start this side business. We start making millions. We bring it to Conrad. We show him that we're worth something. She's like, it's a good idea, but the fact that it's you, I don't know. And then it cuts to Kevin, who's at the pond, throwing rocks, and he's remembering trigger warning, I say. Kevin's at the pond, he's throwing stones. He's remembering because Harry earlier brings up or like in another episode, he brought up this guy named Rusby, who we saw at the retirement home when he was trying to get Mary's mom a bed in the home, like convincing them. And at first, Kevin was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know who that is. Like, just stop bringing it up. And the last couple episodes, you've kind of seen it popping back up, just flashbacks. And when he's at the pond, it like fully comes out. We see Rusby was like a prison guard when Kevin was younger, and he would essay him. I'm guessing repeatedly. I don't know if it was a one-time thing. I'm guessing it was probably multiple times. So yeah, it's hard for him to remember that. He's like throwing the rocks. He gets getting mad, like more and more mad as he's throwing them, and as he's remembering, and he starts crying because it's all coming back to him. So he's dealing with that. Harry, meanwhile, is at the pub. He meets this guy named Freddie who works for Ritchie. And he's at a pub. He brings a big bag that's got guns and grenades and cash in it. And then he offers Freddie the cash in the bag, which he said was $50K, to hide the bag somewhere in Richie's house so that they can have some kind of, assurances when they go to the wake. And at first, Freddie doesn't agree, but then Harry pulls out a phone. He had like a whole locker of phones with just people's names on them. They're just phones from people he stole, like so he can blackmail people, which is what he does. He pulls out a phone that said Freddie on it, and he pulls out a picture that shows Freddie and Vron having an affair. So if Ritchie found out, this guy would be toast. And so he basically is telling Freddie he's the weakest link, and he's basically saying like, you have to do this, otherwise you're totally screwed. So now it's time for the actual funeral. The Harrigans, they all arrive in 3 separate cars. The first one's got Maeve and Conrad. The next one's got Kevin, Bella, and Eddie's dumbass. And the last one's got Harry and Jan. They all meet Ritchie and Vron. They're giving their condolences. Until Eddie, of course, the whole episode, you're just like, when is he going to do something that's going to just ruin everything? Doesn't do anything yet, but he's getting there. He walks up to Ritchie, and Ritchie goes, hello, Edward. And he's like, hello, Richard. And then Ritchie goes, it's Ritchie. And Eddie goes, oh, really? Well, in that case, I'm Eddie. And then he goes to Vron, and he's like, I don't think we've met. He goes and like kiss her on the cheek, and she's like, fuck off, and runs off into the house. And then Ritchie goes and chases off after her. Eddie, just being a smug asshole like he is, he's just like, and Kevin's just like, what the he's like, what was that? And he's like, oh, I was trying to be nice. He's like, don't. And then Harry comes a bit right after that. He goes, if you do anything like that again, I'll strangle you myself. That was a terrible impression. Oh my god, I don't even know what I was doing. That was like 3 different things in a row. But anyway, the funeral starts. Ritchie's on the stand, giving a speech about Tommy and whatnot. And meanwhile, he's staring down Conrad, and Maeve even points it out. She keeps talking to him and trying to get a reaction out of him. He's like, look, he's mean mugging. He's trying to make you look like a pussy in front of everybody. And he's like, Maeve, shut the fuck up. I swear to God. And, people are like looking over there at him and stuff. And it's just like awkward. And I will say good for Conrad for actually making his own decision, because in the episodes before this, Maeve would be all up in his ear and he would do something, but now he's actually like finally maybe being his own decision maker for once. I'm sure by now Conrad is probably suspicious of Maeve in some capacity. Like, he's not a complete idiot. At least I don't think he is, but again, we'll see. After that, they go to Richie's house for the wake. Eddie immediately runs upstairs. He's like digging through their bathroom and knocking stuff off the counter. He gets this like mirror or something and puts some cocaine on it. He's like doing a line, and when he stands up, Harry's behind him. He's pushes him onto the counter. He's like up in his face and intimidating him, and Eddie's pushing his hand over to try and grab these nail scissors, and Harry just scoffs at the idea. He's like, really? Nail scissors? And then Eddie's like, okay, never mind. And then Harry just says, just go downstairs and just at least pretend to be a man for once in your life, and just stand there in the wedding. Just be there. They go back downstairs. Richie's across the room from Conrad, just like staring him down still. Conrad says to Harry, he goes, get over there and ask Ritchie why he keeps staring at me. And Harry's like, oh, he's not staring at you. And Conrad's like, don't tell me who's staring at me and who's not staring at me, because he definitely is. And while they're like doing that, Maeve like goes over to Vron. She's like, oh, I'm so sorry for your condolence. And then Vron like blows up. She's like, I don't even want y'all here. I don't like y'all. And then she makes fun of her being old, and like, I can't believe Conrad is having sex with this old dusty crypt walker, just does that. Maeve holds her tongue, walks away. She's been pounding drinks. Kevin gives her he like spikes her drink with something to like trying to stop her from doing anything crucial. She does at one point like nod to Eddie, which causes Eddie to like start walking towards Ritchie, which Harry notices immediately and starts falling behind him. Eddie like shoulder checks one of the guards on the way over there, and then the guard and Eddie are like button heads, and then Harry gets in the middle with Kevin, and he's like, all right, we're taking Eddie. They're like, Eddie, get the fuck out of here, go home. Richie's like, no, we'll stay, I invited him. And he's like, no, it's fine, we'll take him home. And Richie's like, oh, we can give him a ride, but obviously they know that means Eddie's gonna get killed on the way home. Bella ends up interjecting like, nope, I'm taking Eddie home. And they leave. Richie's then like, all right, Conrad, we have to speak. And then the next scene, they're in a meeting, all of them together. You got like Ritchie and his two guards behind him. You got like one outside the room, and you got Conrad with Harry and Kevin behind him. And Ritchie starts off by asking Conrad if he was nervous at all about coming, which Conrad says no, I wasn't. He wasn't at all nervous. And Ritchie doesn't believe him, and he says to Conrad that he's a wily man and he's surprised that he even came, but he does respect the fact that they came. And then he reveals that he knows that Aljon did not kill Tommy and chop him up. He knows the Harrigans had something to do with it, but he also said he doesn't want a war. Then he says that Eddie, though, if he sees Eddie anywhere in public, in a park, in a pub, in a wherever, he's fair game. But for now, he gets to live, unlike Tommy. I will say these are all horrible people doing horrible things, but you do feel bad for Ritchie, you know. Seeing your son murdered and chopped up isn't gonna fuck anyone up, you know. So you kind of feel bad for him in a like fatherly way, but outside of that, that's it. Only because of that. Last scene, Conrad's out fishing with his dog. He's just fishing all the time. Catches a trout. He's preparing it for dinner, and Maeve wakes up. She's got a headache. She says someone roofied her, and he's like, no, nothing like that happened. And he's like, look at my fish. I'm taking a picture of my fish. And she throws it on the floor, and he's like, that's no way to treat my trout. And I thought that was funny. So weird. Just watching, like, being an American and watching British, Irish shows and stuff, just the mannerisms and phrases just is funny. Which I'm sure the same is for them when they hear things that we say, and they're just like, what the f, that's stupid or weird. And it's just funny. After she throws the fish on the floor, they give each other the finger, and she runs off. She pulls out her phone. She calls some guy named Paul. I don't remember who that is. I don't know if you've met Paul yet, but she calls a guy named Paul. It cuts to Ron. She's going out to go shopping, and right when she got out to get in the car, you could just tell the way they're setting it up that they're like, oh yeah, she's about to get blown up, dude. And yeah, she gets in the car, she starts it, and boom, the car explodes, she's dead, and then the credits start rolling. So this show is just like, every episode is just tension, sometimes action. You can have really good action with words, which I think is a good aspect of this show. You know, not everything has to be like fist fights and guns and stabbing and stuff. You know, it's more verbal, which is always entertaining. People always trying to one up each other, and just tension slowly building. And now that Ron got blown up, it's just going to be downhill from here. It was already going downhill, but now it's just even further. I really enjoy the show. Once again, the opening credit sequence, the music is amazing. Yeah, I really enjoy the show. We got 5 episodes left, and stuff's getting crazy. So by the end, I don't even know where it's going to go, but you know it's going to be insane. And Tom Hardy has a new movie on Netflix called Havoc, and I want to see that because I heard it's good and it looks crazy. Comment down below what you think of this episode. Did you like it? You like the show? What's your favorite character? Hit the like button, subscribe. Peace.